Roll call, please, Vicki.
Colin Barnes.
Here.
Nina Fontana.
Here.
Vicki Henry Favor.
Here.
Mary Hess.
Here.
Tom Mattia. Victoria Newport. Here. Tracy Williams.
Here. Who's are you?
Yes.
Who's that sitting next to you?
Oh, these are my friends Samantha and Caleb. Would you like them to lead the pledge?
I would love
They're
for
kind of
them to
capable
have.
of that. Come on, friends.
Yeah, come on down, Miss White. Yeah.
Oh, come on. We're not shy at Lincoln Elementary School. We can put on a good show.
And what are your
Samantha?
names again?
Samantha and Caleb.
Caleb. All right. You guys ready? Here we go. You start.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very well done. Thank you both. And that young lady's very casual. That didn't bother her at all. Okay. We're going to start with public participation and recognition. It's been recommended that the Board of Education accept with gratitude the donation of $15,130.17 in grants from the DeKalb Education Foundation and the donation of $2,500 grant from 3M for professional development for Common Core alignment within STEM courses at DeKalb High School. Do we have a motion? Vicki?
Colin Barnes.
Yes.
Nina Fontana.
Yes.
Vicki Henry Favor.
Yes.
Mary Hess.
Yes.
Victoria Newport.
Yes.
Tracy Williams.
Yes, and I thank both the Education Foundation and 3M for their very generous gifts. Public comment, any cards tonight, Vicki? Board committee reports and correspondence? Nothing? No one? Well, as usual, I don't have any committee thing, but I do want to wish the girls swimmers great luck this weekend. There's several of them qualified for the state tournament. And I think we had 2 sectional champs that won their individual heat for races. And that's in the Northwest suburbs. That's not easy to do. So well done and good luck to them. Okay, Kishwaukee College dual credit with DeKalb High School, Ms. Roper and Dr. Mark Lanting. Information on it.
I think Mary, I don't know if Mary's here also from Cash and James.
I'm just going to hand you some additional information for your nighttime reading pleasure.
So I'm going to let Mark start out. I know that you did receive the Kish on Campus for DeKalb High School. That's something that we created based on some other Kish on Campuses that are going on in other districts. So that was included in your board doc. So if you have any questions about that, you can refer those to James or myself.
Very good. Why don't we just go ahead and pass the folders around. There's just some additional information about our dual credit program for review at any time you like. But thank you, Principal Roper and board for having us here today. My name is Mark Lansing. I'm the Vice President of Instruction at Kishwaukee College. I just started there in May, so I'm relatively new. When I arrived at Kishwaukee College, one of the things I recognized as an opportunity was room for growth in our dual credit program. There were some good things happening, but I knew that we could do more. In addition, the president of the college told me that this is something that he had as a priority, and so I said, okay, let's do this. And so we're working with our area high school partners to grow up our dual credit offering. Just a quick bit of definition from the Illinois Community College Board's website. Dual credit allows academically prepared high school students to simultaneously earn credits that count toward high school diploma and a college degree. Dual credit instruction delivers a win-win arrangement for all parties. Students gain access to challenging college-level coursework with transferable credit. Students can prove to others and themselves that they have the ability to succeed in college, which is really important in this era where we know college readiness is a huge issue. Students can prove, college costs can be reduced significantly for parents and students, and the time to degree at college can be shortened significantly. The enhanced partnerships that we build between the college and the high school is significant too, and we enjoy building that rapport and those relationships as well. Dual credit enrollments have taken off in recent years across our state, across the nation. Since about 2008 or so, when I began in higher education to now, the numbers of students engaging in dual credit has basically tripled. And so we see great growth there. At a regional high school not far from us, students are currently earning up to 17 college credits in dual credit programming by the time they graduate, and there are plans to grow that up to about 23 credits in the near future. I'll get to cost savings in a minute, but I can say that the current literature, the scholarly work in dual credit demonstrates that students participating in this program have desirable outcomes. Their college enrollment is very high. Their college completion rates are very good. Their persistence, their grades are pretty solid. Yet the financial savings can't be understated. Kishwaukee College dual credit students will pay 1/2 of our $113 a credit hour tuition, which is $56.50 a credit. So a student taking 3 credit hour class will pay only $169.50. And a 4 credit hour class is going to cost $226. We looked at Northeastern Illinois University because it's northern regional and it's low cost. For comparison, just to share with you tonight, students taking an equivalent 4 credit dual credit course at Kishwaukee College will pay significantly lower tuition than Northeastern Illinois University. So if they take 4 credit hour physics there, we're going to charge them about $1,300 less at Kishwaukee College, and they're going to have transferable college credit. That's almost 80% cost savings. We're looking at tuitions at major land-grant universities, some nearby that I will not mention, running from $11,000 to $15,000 a year, and our regional private colleges and universities running from $20,000 to $45,000 a year. Dual credit just makes financial sense. At Kishwaukee College, we are working to simplify our processes and open more doors for dual credit in our region and with DeKalb High School. I visited DeKalb several times since I've arrived. Tamara and I have been working together to develop new course offerings, and we are on the cusp of having those offerings ready for the fall semester. I'm in touch with schools through email and phone about dual credit endeavors on a daily basis, and we look forward to being at your high school Parents Night coming up, I believe in January, and we'll be participating in that. Tom Choice will be present for that as well. And we're doing everything we can to enhance dual credit possibilities at DeKalb High School and in our districts. And so we are going to be offering history courses, political science, and speech.
And physics, but we're not sure which level yet.
And we're working on physics and other possibilities I believe will emerge as we go forward. And so just want to share with you that's what we're doing and how we're partnering with you, and we appreciate your partnership. So thank you for the few minutes that we have today. I'm happy to entertain you.
Anyone?
I've been out of school for a while now, but the classes that they take here, when you mentioned transferring, let's say a student goes to Kish for a year and then transfers to university, independent of having an associate's degree. What, like University of Illinois, Northern Illinois University, these courses we know transfer to those?
That's a great question. It's one of the most important questions we can ask about dual credits, transferability. Why are we going to invest in that if we're not certain that it's going to transfer to Northern, to ISU, to U of I, wherever a student might go, in-state and out-of-state. In-state, we have the advantage of what's called the Illinois Articulation Initiative, IAI. It's an acronym that we use a lot, which is an initiative where universities and two-year colleges have panels that agree that, for instance, Kishwaukee's English 101 is exactly the same as English 101 at Northern as U of I. And so it built a transfer guarantee for those IAI courses. And so when we're working with dual credit, we're working specifically with those IAI designated courses to guarantee transfer. We always still recommend that students and families check with their transfer institutions first. If you're in dual credit, give the counselors a call, say, hey, this is what we're doing, and make absolutely sure, because you never know. There could be an anomaly with a small liberal arts college or something like that. But our track record has been very, very good with transferability. largely because of the work that's going on with IAI.
Can I just add one thing too? The courses that we chose are courses that students will need for most degrees, the government, well, the political science, the history, the speech. And we're hoping to get composition in there at some point. We're not quite there yet, but, so that's why we chose those classes.
Those core gen eds are what we really want to go after. Again, the cost savings and the good experience for the students speaks to itself.
So Tamara, did I read these are going to be probably taught by DHS?
They are
teachers?
going to be taught by DHS
Staff,
teachers.
okay.
Judy Staffstrom will teach the government. Tobias Hatch will teach the history up to 1877 first semester, and then 1877 on second semester. So that'll be 6 credit hours that we get both semesters. And then Greg Solomon will be teaching the speech, and Jay Smith will be teaching the physics once we iron that out. We haven't quite ironed that one out yet.
And they'll be during the regular
Regular
day.
school day, yeah.
Thank you.
And just for general public edification, are these considered AP, and if so, or are these weighted in any way?
Well, that's the conversation we've been having. I talked to the principals within our conference to find out what they were doing, because dual credit is offered in almost all the schools in the conference. And they're anywhere from a full weight, like an AP, to 0.5, like an honors. And we're actually gearing towards the 0.5. And that would be for any dual credit college class.
Other than the engineering method science academy.
Yes, that's it. Well, that's dual. Is that considered dual credit or dual enrollment?
That's a dual enrollment
Because
program.
that's not taught by our teachers, so that one is, that is, right.
And I love the EMSA, by the way, it's great. Students can participate in that.
Well, I'd just like to say, I mean, we've heard for a long time how local universities or colleges in our district need to partner and work together, and it's nice to just see it finally happening. So thank you.
We're all about that. We look forward to building stronger ties as we move forward.
Yeah, long overdue.
All
So
right.
well done.
Thank you, board.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right.
Next, we'll have the instructional math materials proposal for the elementary level. Oh, I managed to do it. I'm so sorry. The one-to-one technology update with Kelly Hamilton and Anna Hoyu information. We don't do that. Yeah. Yes, it was cool there too.
Okay. This is from Lincoln Elementary School, Special Agent Samantha Sweet and Special Agent Caleb James. And they are going to tell you exactly what they did here that you'll see in just a moment. So Caleb, will you start?
As you heard, I'm Caleb, and this is my friend Sam. We did a video about the tablets. We interviewed some people, and we just took some general footage of them doing it. So,
Samantha, would you like to say what you've learned about this process and being the camera woman? Like, what did we learn about taking video?
we learned that we can do more stuff if we take it and then edit it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We learned not to walk and videotape it. We learned that sometimes it's hard, right, to hear our interviewees, right, if we're in the classroom. So these two friends here, we recruited their help, and really all together, they wrote the interview questions, different questions for each grade level. They were given special permission to go out and collect the footage, right? Is that what you call it?
Yes.
And they took their job seriously and they were paid handsomely for their efforts. So we have this video to share with you. It has been edited. And just a reminder, this is the first go. So it really is a little, but it's awesome. And I think it shows really how much fun we're having with this at Lincoln Elementary School.
Come check. We're live.
Oh, yeah. You might have to stay by the controller. It might get a little loud.
Are there any foods that you dislike on your tablet? Have you taught any of your classmates to do anything on the tablet? Okay. They're like study tablets. Usually I do study well. Have you taught any of your classmates anything on the tablets? No, not really. Are there any things that you dislike about the tablets? Well, sometimes I have trouble with the tablets, and it doesn't work, kind of. Are there any things that you dislike on your tablet? Have you taught any of your classmates anything on tablets? What do you do most on your tablet? I film. What have you learned from other teachers?
I learned how to set up a Google Classroom. I learned how to use Samsung School and how to appropriately address it with the students and how we can utilize them in the classroom to make learning a little bit different in the classroom rather than pull out the regular books. Now we can utilize the tablets and we can use different books through there by pushing them out using Samsung School and all that.
What have you learned from the students?
I learned from the students, oh my, so much. You guys live in technology, your phones and your iPads and your tablets. So I feel like even though I can share the content, like of social studies and math and all of that, I feel like the technology piece is what I'm learning from the students. Because you guys live this way, I did not.
You can't be that old,
I think this question is a glitch. You mean by glitch?
Yeah.
What do you mean by glitch?
When the tablets make a mistake and mess things up.
Yeah, and I think they also don't love when we do something one way and then we change the way we do it because I'm still learning the process of how to use it.
They need to be adaptable.
Adaptable, flexible brain, right?
Mhm.
All right, awesome, excellent answer.
Do you like having tablets? Why? Because they're like fun and I had been fun going into the class. What is your favorite app? Make your own person. It's Kimmy. Oh, that's all. Do you like having tablets? Mm-hmm. Why? Because it's fun. What is your favorite app? Pictures. Why? Because I can take a picture of my future. Cool. It's camera. Alright. I think the coolest thing is I like Maya because we get to read a bunch of cool books like Deadliest Bugs on Earth. That's the book I'm reading right now. What have you tried to teach you on tablets? I've taught Lexi to grab kids that we think the robot grows bigger and bigger as we go on. Why do you like the tablet so much? Because we get to learn more things and we don't have to write as much. So your hand is very yeah. Why do you like your tablet so much? Because most of the things that we have to write out, we get to do on our tablet. What is the coolest thing you can do on Google Classroom? Probably going on Mayan. What have you taught your teachers to do? Nothing really. Can I go eat now? Why do you like the tablet? Because you can read on it, you don't have to read the writing stuff, so you just have the tablet. On our tablet, and we can go ask kids and read books. Why do you like your tablet so much? Because we can do things that we can't do on pages and books and stuff. Why do you like your tablet so much? This is just on regular page. Hey. thing you can do on Google Classrooms? I liked writing in docs. What have you taught your teacher to do on the tablets? Well, actually, I don't know a lot about the tablets. Why do you like the tablet so much? Because I don't have a tablet at home and it's big and I like using it for math things. What is the coolest thing you can do on Google Classroom? You get to see the assignments that your teacher has drawn for you to do. What have you taught your teacher to do on your tablet? We showed her new things that we've seen on our tablet. Why do you like your tablet so much? Because I get to learn new things and see cool websites. That's $1.50.
All right, so these two fabulous kids visited almost every classroom, which is awesome. But I also wanted to just give a shout out to all the Lincoln staff that are here that try these things every day, you know, win, lose, or draw kind of thing. And they've been troopers with us in this change of our environment. So Miss Sweet, stand up, 4th grade. Miss Dyer, 1st grade. Miss Hartwig, who is not that old, 5th grade. Mr. M, who is 3rd grade. And who else do I have here? That's it, I think, of these 2 turkeys. So thank you very much. We hope our last video of the year will be a little more stable and focused. Would you say that's our goal, secret agents? All right.
That's one of the better videos.
Well, thank you, Ms. Hoyu, and for you two guys, you're on your way. That was a really good movie. I've paid a lot of money to see stuff on it. So, thank you all. Okay, next, back on track here, the instructional math materials proposal for the elementary level, Ms. Palomar.
Good evening. I hope that as you walked in, perhaps you saw that we have some materials sitting out. If not, you can take a look at them as you walk out tonight. Jamie Hartwig, as you just saw, is here from 5th grade, but she is also here because she is going to represent the math committee. So it's a teacher perspective, and she's going to kind of run the machine for me, so I don't have to keep it going back and forth. So if you could go ahead and move on. Okay, so our math materials that we've had in elementary school are probably about 15 years old that we have had everyday math, even though we have had some updates along the way. As you know, last year we have Common Core teams that got together to deconstruct the standards, and I served on the math Common Core team. We deconstructed the math standards, wrote essential questions, identified measurable goals and learning targets, and essential vocabulary. And through looking at the standards that we are now required to teach, we began to believe that the everyday math materials and the spiraling curriculum that we've been using for so long did not seem to really fit the mold. But it couldn't just be a gut instinct. We really needed to use some materials and a rubric to confirm that, because if we knew that they weren't going to meet, we wanted to know what were the areas particularly that were lacking. So we used the instructional materials evaluation tool from the Achieve the Core website, which our middle schools are currently using as well, and we have also used in language arts, to evaluate the alignment of our current everyday math materials to the Common Core, and through that process found that our materials indeed are not aligned to the Common Core. So there is an entire process that this rubric goes through, but one of the most important pieces is that it truly looks at each standard. And within the Common Core standards for each grade, there are major clusters, major standards of the grade, and some additional supporting clusters. For materials to be aligned, they need to devote 65 to 85% of class time to those major standards, the major work of each grade, with K2 near the upper end. As we went through everyday math, these were the percentages that we found at each grade. Particularly concerning were those really low percentages on the kindergarten as well as 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So we began to look at, what can we do about this? So in April, we were finished deconstructing the standards, and we used the rubric from Achieve the Core to evaluate the materials and found that it was not aligned. So then in May of 2014, we we called in some publishing companies and we heard presentations at that time from 3 vendors to examine some new materials. We listened to Envision, which is a Pearson product, My Math, which is a McGraw-Hill product, and we did look at Everyday Math 4, is the newer piece of Everyday Math. Although they still were not completely finished with that, and even still are not. So in September then, we expanded our team so that we ensured that we had representatives from every building and every grade level, bilingual included. And we heard another presentation at that point from GoMath, which is a Harcourt product. We heard all of these presentations, listened to what they had to say. We knew the standards very, very well, and we knew what was lacking because we had gone through the rubric. And our gut feeling at that point was that My Math was the way to go. However, we wanted to still use that same rubric. And so in September, we used the Instructional Materials Evaluation Toolkit again then on the My Math materials so that we could truly make a comparison. We found that in My Math, class time was focused, the percentages were considerably higher on the major work of the grade. It also met the other 9 criteria that indicate alignment to the Common Core. Those are demonstrating the instructional shifts that we're looking at in math. And those really focus in on 3 areas. Focusing where the standards focus. Coherence, so that across the grades we are linked. And the rigor, so that the students can really, really dig deep into concepts, still have that procedural skill and fluency that has sort of been lacking with everyday math, and then the application of what they are learning. We have some committee members then that started to use some of these sample materials in their classrooms to kind of start to compare, and they reported the ease of use and that there was definitely an increase in rigor. There is a technology component that is quite extensive that helped engage learners because within the My Math materials, not only is it designed very easily to move to a one-to-one setting, even the classrooms with smart boards, there are presentations, there are videos, it all really wraps together there. There are many assessment components all along the way that are extensive. There are bilingual materials, which is a difficulty in many, many programs that we look at, both in print and digital form. And there are many opportunities for reteaching and enrichment embedded right into the programs. I did go ahead and present in October then to Curriculum Council, and Curriculum Council voted last week to continue on. So that's why I'm here with you today. The My Math lesson design is quite extensive. The chapters are all revolve around an essential question, which is what we have been developing through deconstructing those standards. It starts off with a readiness assessment. So right off the bat, you're checking to see, are these students ready for this concept? If they are, there are opportunities to move forward. If they are not, there are differentiation opportunities to reteach. Math vocabulary, which is huge, is built right in and assessed. We haven't seen that before. There are interactive graphic organizers built right in to practice skills. There is an opportunity for guided practice. Manipulatives are used at that point, both hands-on, but also the online manipulatives are extensive. There then is an independent practice piece, which is broken into procedural skill and problem solving. And then the homework is right in the materials as well. And what our teachers who were examining those materials in their classrooms reported very closely was that what they really liked about the homework is that it truly was a representation of what they had done in class that day. The first problem on the homework was really kind of a review of something they had just seen. And one of our teachers who was supposed to be here tonight but couldn't be, she had sent a couple of those homeworks home. And parents right away were very excited to see, wow, I get it. There's an example exactly of what you're working on. And I think one of our concerns at times with everyday math, and some of you who have had children go through the system, I know as a teacher, sometimes I felt like I sent the homework home that night, but it had some problems on it that really we hadn't just been learning about, or it might have been a review, but it was taught in a different way. And that was frustrating for some parents. So parents really like that piece. The differentiation is really, really extensive as well. All along the way, there are opportunities for quick checks, not just that beginning readiness assessment, but along a unit. Every 4 lessons, there's an assessment built in also. How is it going? Do I need to reteach? Can I move on? Those then reteaching and enrichment activities are built right in, especially in a one-to-one environment. If I have some students that didn't do well on an assessment, I can immediately push out to their tablets another reteaching activity or an enrichment activity to do. Those are already designed, so teachers aren't having to create those themselves. Those then are designed to support on-level, below-level, and above-level learners. The assessments themselves that are given at the end of the unit assess the same material, but there are even 3 levels of assessments, meaning if a student is struggling with the readability, maybe some of the writing that goes with the problem solving, it might be just a multiple choice of assessing those concepts. The on-level would probably have some multiple choice and some extended response if they write. And the above might all be problem solving. So that was nice also to see that you could still assess some of the STEAM skills, but even push even further those students that were ready and maybe assess the students that were right there kind of on the cusp and something that was easier for them to grasp. There is additional support for English language learners built right in. Strategies are built right into the program, as well as materials being available in Spanish. We also just found out, and we did not know this ahead of time, most series that you will purchase that have bilingual materials do not have manuals in Spanish. So the bilingual teachers are looking at their English manual and translating it as they go to their students. They actually just developed all of those teachers' manuals in Spanish as well, and those will be available in the spring. And our bilingual teachers are very excited to hear that, because it is difficult for them to take a look at that English manual and right away try to translate that in a way that is comprehensible to our English language learners. Along the way, there are also what they call hot problems to provide more problem solving with multi-steps, more of the types of activities we'll see on PARC. The materials themselves are in a fully consumable format. That is different than what we have had before. We've had homework masters, assessment masters, different books that we had to grab. Everything is in a student work. The homework is in there, the lesson is in there, the guided practice, the independent practice, and in the one-to-one it would be the same. What we would purchase would give us consumable materials or digital materials or a combination of both. Even though we have the consumables, we still do get that every child has a one-to-one seat, so they could take an assessment still in their computer lab using that. We wouldn't have to just have it there. Their homework then has an e-help symbol on it, which is really nice. Students and parents then at home doing homework, if they're on a tablet, they can click on the e-help and it will immediately take them to manipulatives that might help with that problem, an explanation or a sample video that explains how to do that problem. But if you do not have the tablet, you can still type in that web address from home and a parent can watch a video on how that problem is solved, or a child, or a parent can take a look at how manipulatives might help that student solve that problem in a different way. So the digital platform is web-based. So we had Denise, we had Brian in on all of our conversations to see that that this would work with our system. The nice thing also about the consumable format is that anytime MyMath does updates, and they do these regularly because we Common Core is new for every publisher, and they're constantly taking feedback, and they're constantly looking at the questions that they're asking and how they are aligned to the way that our students get assessed. And every time there's an update, we immediately get it in that digital format. Now, it wouldn't be in the consumable book that year, but in the online version, it would be, and teachers would see that immediately. And when they log in, it will say updates, and they would find that out right away. And then the following year, it would be updated. It's not a textbook there that we have to worry that we don't get that update. So all of our staff had an opportunity to view these samples during our October 9th collaboration day. We put our grade level teams together. We sent sample materials. We gave them an opportunity to look through. We had the math committee member from that grade pull it up online, show them all of the features, and then they also got to look through the actual print materials. And we asked them to fill out some sheets that they sent back to me about what do you think the positives were, what were some of the negatives. There were high positive comments. These were some of their comments that the online component includes everything. The videos that relate to student engagement, the manipulatives that are online right into the lesson. So whether you have a tablet or you don't have a tablet, you can pull them up on your smartboard and kids can go up right there and use them. We're constantly doing that now, but we're pulling from many places. And everything's in one spot. That workbook then has everything in one place, and it's visually appealing to students. There are multiple forms of assessment and built-in differentiation. Their homework has examples of what we actually did in class with that personal tutor. And then this program is based on applications and strategies with solutions. It forces the skills of explaining why a student got that answer. And then that skill focus is more concentrated as well for that procedural skill influencing. So then the money is where we come down. My math is actually in January extending its prices, which was kind of beneficial for me talking to the sales rep because he would like to get this done by the end of the school year now before January comes. And so the value of our materials you'll see there. Some of the materials we're getting for free. So some of the Spanish learning stations we're getting for free. Some of the manipulatives we are getting for free. So teachers will have the new kits of manipulatives that relate directly to what's talked about in the program. The shipping and handling covers the 5 years of shipments because we would purchase this in a 5-year. And that would be okay because we would get the updated version each year. We wouldn't be stuck with the textbook for 5 years that's outdated. Every time there's an update, we get the update. So the grand total there you'll see. And then I did a cost comparison. So I took what we are currently spending on just the everyday math workbooks each year. So if you multiply what we're spending on just the everyday math books that we still have to purchase every year, and we multiply that by 5 years, we end up with $321,279 if there was no price increase. That doesn't include any updated teacher materials. Everyday Math did update their teacher manual, but not every teaching master was updated. So we would be looking at, they would refer to something that we didn't have because it's all in different places. There aren't any additional learning stations or manipulatives in just ordering the workbooks. My math, $321,191 includes those student books, the online student seats, the teacher's manuals, the print and digital updates immediately, those learning stations and the manipulatives. And the learning stations also have some readers that are also available in Spanish. So to implement this, we would need to do some training, but we would also need to evaluate along the way. So my math has a hybrid model of professional development that can be divided into online sessions and face-to-face sessions. For example, if you were to approve this in December at that meeting right before winter break, and we could go forward with the purchase, we would get those materials in January so that in February we have a half collab day and a full institute day. This would be a teacher's dream to have materials and get training long before they're actually going to implement them. We had that half collab day where we could do a online learning piece that teachers would watch an introduction, and that would be kind of their professional development, followed that very next day by actual professional development led by the MyMath people so that they can hands-on really dig in. And then we would continue to add professional development as needed based on, do we need to add another one in the spring, or do we want teachers to just start to examine, and we really should do it in the fall when they started using them and they have some more questions. So we would have that opportunity. We're also really lucky that we do have those half-day collaboration days because all next year, as we are going through the implementation of a new program, too often we purchase something, we say we're going to come back and discuss it, and that becomes very difficult to do. But with those half-day collab days, we can pull our teachers together, they can have discussion, we can evaluate the effectiveness, and our committee would need to still meet and make certain that it's doing what we need to do. Keep in mind that these are materials, and the Common Core is what we follow. That is our curriculum. The materials will help us do that in a much better way than what we have right now. But there might be opportunities for us to, online is a wealth of free materials, some really good stuff, some bad stuff, but some really good stuff that could be used to supplement as well, pieces along the way. And we might need to do that, but we would need to do that with anything that we did. So that's just, we tell our teachers that all the time. These are materials to help you teach the standards, but we still might need to pull some things from time to time. But as we look and evaluate the program along the way, we would know that. Questions? Any questions?
Just like curiosity, are there options besides locking into a 5-year?
There's a 1 year, it's considerably more expensive. Considerably, and the price will go up. The reason that I feel that we aren't in trouble by locking into a 4-year is that it's just consistently updated. And they're very receptive. For example, we had a teacher watching one of the videos in Spanish because she wanted to hear it. She didn't like the way one of the translations was. I mentioned it to the sales rep. He said, you know what? If she listens to that video and doesn't tell her what we need to fix it, we'll redo it and it will be posted then. You know, they're very receptive to making changes because that online piece, they can do that right away. So I feel, I know Jenny, you feel that we would be safe in doing it that way.
You mentioned everyday maths product wasn't fully baked yet. This is pretty much
this is
ready
done.
to go. Done.
And everyday maths product that is in the process also continues to do the spiral. It is a different philosophy, is a different approach. I think if you ask some of our teachers, that's been a challenging approach, particularly now with the Common Core. Common Core is asking us to be deep into fewer standards, and everyday math spirals and teaches a lot. They probably would narrow it a little bit more, but we would still have that spiral, which is difficult for many students to follow. Their Spanish materials are not even close to being ready. These are ready to go. The teachers' manuals are being translated currently, and we'll have them. Even if we didn't, we still would want to go with that. So.
Well, I mean, for me, as a parent in the district, I can't tell you how many times over the years my kids have had math questions, and I can't help it. I mean, I try and Google and figure it out.
Right.
To be able to have access to some of those resources, to be able to guide them through, or just reinforce it for them when they have questions they don't remember what transpired in class. I think that's great. To me, this is one-to-one. This is the benefit of it, and then the real-time updates is phenomenal. And I gotta say, it was an absolutely great presentation. So, thank you.
Do you feel like if you take a third grader, a student who started in kindergarten and went through third grade in the spiral of Chicago math, and then switches to my math in fourth grade, the learning style and the philosophies are really different, and I'm wondering about the gap that might or might not happen with the change in materials.
I'm not as concerned about even the learning style. It's the standards themselves.
Okay.
The standards themselves are much more rigorous, and they are different than what we're used to right now. So that lag is going to be there. So just because my math is saying this is what kids in third grade should be ready to do, that does not mean our third graders will be ready to do that. What I do like is that online piece as well, that, you know, if I'm a third grade teacher and maybe a second grade teacher has something that I could access because my kids need a little bit of background on that, we could do that. But we would have to do that with anything. Or maybe I get online and I find a free resource that second grade Common Core has so that I can do that. So I completely understand what you're saying. I just think that we're going to see that anyway. The difference in the spiraling versus the other, I just think our kids, everything about the Common Core is going to look a little bit different for them right now. The rigor, definitely.
Could we go back to that one slide that showed how the time was spent in the various grade levels?
Yes.
It was the first or second.
That's on everyday math.
On everyday math.
So this is concerning, of course, by itself, right? Are you saying then that this new program doesn't allow that to happen? I mean,
No, and I can give you the percentages actually. And it will not be 100%, but I'll explain also the supporting clusters and the difference in those. Kindergarten, 73%, first grade, 78%, second grade, 82, so much higher, close to that 85. Third grade, 65, fourth grade, 65, fifth grade, 79. So you see the two are a little closer to the bottom end of the 65. The other difference is, as we use the rubric and we look at the materials, the major clusters of the grade that we're talking about, these percentages, you heard those. But it is those additional supporting clusters and the activities that go along with them that the rubric also asks you to look at. So let's say in kindergarten, there was a worksheet in one series that had graph. What was the favorite color of these teachers? And they're just reading a graph. That's in a supporting cluster that's just basic on its own. A program like MyMath would take something like that and tie in a major cluster of the grade. What's the difference between the number of students that liked blue versus the number of students that liked red? So our rubric forced us to also look at those percentages that weren't on the major cluster of the grade and see that those, even though they were additional clusters or supporting standards, hold in a major standard of the grade. So there was a difference there as well in looking at those. And like I said, there, there will always be opportunities that we need to look for additional, I mean, there's not a one-size-fits-all program. There isn't.
All right, then the last question is just for everyone's edification. How is this budgeted?
Well, I think as
We have to-
demonstrated,
We go back to
there,
that page.
right. There's money already worked into the budget for what we currently are doing. So it would really be the difference, which is quite minimal.
Except that we're pulling it forward significantly.
Right.
So I guess the question becomes, is there any sort of negotiation that allows you to do a 5-year commitment, but pay over time? Because this will have an impact to next year's budget and or deficit. Now, clearly, that we don't show that year after year. What our budget could look 260,000 or whatever worse next year because of this, which is, I'm not, you did a fabulous job, Paul. I'm not trying to
No, I
squash this at
understand.
all.
I was actually really excited about the 5-year plan. I when we got the quote, I was prepared to be really shocked. For what we're getting and the free shipping over the 5 years since we do that is, that's a big cost savings as well.
Well, it's just a question of how we show that. I mean, next year, this is gonna be a big hit to the budget. Now, over time, not so much, but in fact, you're locking this in where the other one could have a price increase at any time, and most likely will.
Probably
over
will.
the
I mean, I
next
went
5
with
years.
last
So it's not really, a negative thing other than how do we account for it in one hit? And I guess I'd like to suggest perhaps we try a little more negotiation before we, just sign off on this.
Right.
Please.
Just a couple comments. One thing is that, to the extent we roll this out in a one-to-one environment versus paper and pencil, there would be significant things like consumables, which is a big part of it. And yep, I mean, obviously, we don't yet have the technology rolled out for it, but that would result in some significant savings. The other thing I really want to thank the entire team for is, this is the same process that we went through for the middle school English language arts program. The idea of constructing the standards, coming up with the essential questions, learning targets, I can statements, and then looking at this through a very objective rubric, through Achieve the Core, and then look at various, again, we got people marketing things to us, and none of them were perfect, but the process that was followed, and then vetting it among all the teachers and getting feedback from the entire elementary teaching staff, I think is phenomenal. And this type of process, which will continue moving forward, just from my perspective, gives me a lot more confidence in the quality of the materials.
Yeah, the presentation was very well done.
Is there any chance for kids who do not have the one-to-one access? Is there anything that can be put on a website, a school website, where then kids could go in and have that opportunity to have a one-on-one?
They can go in.
Okay.
The price that we get, so if it's a class of 25, you get 25 of the consumables and 25 for online student seats.
So we would have
They
that
can log in
opportunity.
at home, yes.
Well, biggest thing would be the parents to be able to log in.
They probably can show you if they
I've gone through everything math 3 times and I still don't have it, so. No, that's right, that's right. Well, very well done, Paul and the team, thank you. And, great work on all this stuff, because we clearly don't want to go back to making decisions that led us to this situation we're in now, so. Good work. Yeah, get consensus to bring this back. And if you don't mind, please, let's try one more. Just, okay, thank you.
The sales rep has been wonderful to work with, so. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. All right, so we do have a consensus, right? Bring it back. All right, next, the non-business consent agenda. It's been recommended that the Board of Education approve the non-business consent agenda items A through E.
So moved, but I moved to amend the approval agenda to remove the approval of Sarah Meyer as an instructional assistant for Walter.
Second, thank you. Any discussion? Vicki?
Yes.
Nina Fontana,
Yes.
Vicky Hearn in favor,
Yes.
Mary Hess,
Yes.
Victoria Newport,
Yes.
Tracy Williams,
Yes.
Colin Barnes.
Yes.
All right, next, the business consent agenda. It's been recommended that the Board of Education approve business consent agenda items A through E. Do you have a motion?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Vicki?
Vicky Hearn in favor,
Yes.
Mary Hess,
Yes.
Victoria Newport,
Abstain.
Tracy Williams,
Yes.
Colin Barnes,
Yes.
Nina Fontana.
Yes.
All right, next, business and finance. The supplemental deficiency tax levy for 2014 tax year. Andrea, this is information.
So, tonight I'm just going to briefly explain to you what this is, and this is the simplest part of all this tax stuff. So now you could apply your math skills to the next presentation.
I do have a video for that.
And the key there, Andrea, was briefly. I've sat through some of these brief tax presentations before.
It is a dry subject, I will give you that. But this one specific item is due to the federal sequestration, meaning that when the federal government decided they needed to pull back their spending and not fully fund everything, we were affected in this fashion. When we issued bonds from a referendum back in 2009, we issued Build America bonds, which yield us a higher interest rate. However, the federal government was going to give us rebates back to offset that cost. And then the net result of that was actually a lower interest rate on these bonds. Through the sequestration, the government is now not giving us the full amount of dollar amount rebate that they first promised. So what we have to do to make up that difference is add that to our tax levy. So tonight, it's just an information item, but at the January meeting, you will be taking action on moving forward for us to take this amount and add it to our tax levy. And roughly right now, it's about $48,000, little over $48,000. So that's the first part tonight. Okay. Then where we get to apply the math skills. The tax levy process. So tonight, we have to walk you through what we are up against here. So tonight, you'll see that we look at this process, and the properties assessed will be completed in December of 2014. So we are in front of you tonight with estimates that we received from the assessor's office. And this is always the hard part of this. We have to go through this whole process with some unknowns. So keeping that in mind, in December, you'll adopt the levy. The tax rates then are established and finalized, and then we have March and April that we sit down and we can move this around a little bit. And then the taxes will be collected in June through September. And remember, we take a conservative approach with modified accrual, and we take all the money we collect in this year and we push it toward next year, which really has been a benefit for us, because in the event that something happens, we have some planning time before we count on that revenue, where other districts are collecting that money and spending that money in the current fiscal year. So then the next slide is the levy calendar. So tonight you're approving just the projections. Then it gets posted in the paper. We hold a hearing on December 16th. Same evening, you'll adopt it, and then the levy is filed. Then the different components of tax caps and definitions, and I'm not going to read all of this for verbatim, but the important component right now, what we have to understand is in this environment of declining EAV, and we've been in this now for quite a while, what that is doing is raising our tax rate all on its own. When that ends up happening and you reach the limits on each of these funds' tax rates, you no longer can collect any money over and above that. Okay, so right now, I will tell you that unfortunately, we have lost additional EAV. And just as a quick point of reference, we have lost $230 million since 2008. So that's how much our property values in our county have declined for our school district, which is quite substantial, but we will display a visual on where other people sit as well within the county. The limiting rate is the highest tax rate that can be levied for all the funds combined, which fall under the tax cap. And then that, the percentage that is applied to that in the formula is 5% or less, or 5% or CPI, whichever is less, and it's always been far less than 5%, which limits the dollar amount we can capture. So the next slide then displays for you the history of the CPI, as the Consumer Price Index. So when we talk about tax cap, what we're talking about is when we put all of this into the formula, the amount it limits is by the CPI. It's multiplied out by the maximum you could get, and it's the CPI that ends up being the indicator. The lower that CPI is, the lesser amount of money really you're capturing, in addition to the property values falling. So this year that the 1.5 is applied for our tax levy that we're doing in 2014. One big indicator is at this season when we start to see gas prices drop, as we have now seen, and it's been in effect for a while, and continue to understand that those prices will fall down, more than likely the lower the CPI will be. The gas price is weighted very heavily on how it affects the CPI. So for next year, when we're looking at that, we probably anticipate another very low CPI year because of the decline in gas prices. So then, moving forward, here's all the math that's applied to this. So we built a history for you just to kind of demonstrate from 2009 on up, and it's a very top line that says EAV of what our property values have been. So the high point in 2009, we were sitting at almost $844 million. It is now declined down to, and again, this is an estimate from the assessor's office, $613,604,837. New construction is estimated to come in at almost 3.3 million. Now the new construction piece, that is not suppressed by CPI. You put it in the formula and you get the full value. That's typically where additional money is generated when you see that new construction amount. So with that, we apply what we now look at as an inflated amount, and that is because we are taking estimated amounts from the assessor. We hope they're accurate, but in the event they're not, we don't want to leave money what is considered on the table. So that if there was an error in some place in any of these numbers that were provided to us and we didn't capture it, you lose it. Not only that the current year you collect, it forever stays in your base and you've lost out on that money for every year moving forward. So, excuse me, when people ask why you're doing that inflation to the number, that's why. We don't want to intentionally lose out on any money if these numbers don't fare out to what the assessor has provided to us. One thing you will note, what's highlighted in red, are all the funds where we have hit our max tax rates, which are nearly all the funds, at least all the funds actually that matter. Education fund, which includes special ed, tort and lease are really kind of all up in there as well because you can just spread it among those. Operation and maintenance, we're at our tax limit there, and then life safety and working cash. The one fund that you can push more or additional monies through is the transportation fund, and I will explain to you later on in this presentation what will end up happening there. So at the end, you could see what Cindy does when she runs the spreadsheet is, we're requesting 1.7 million, almost 1.8 million more than what we actually think to hope that we're making up for any years that could be in there. Therefore, then that pushes the tax rate, the operating rate, to 7.77, and then the full rate with bond and interest to 8.56. Now again, remember that's the inflated amount. On this second component here, this is just a reconciliation of how we got to that, and because of all the unknowns, what would happen or what would have to happen for us to be completely off the deck on our numbers. So what we are doing is we're taking the assessor's EAV estimates, applying the tax rate, and then stating that would garner us about $45,928,991. In order to capture all of that, however, we're building in some additional dollars to make sure that we have captured everything, which would be then we are requesting $707,920. So in the past, I will tell you though, the assessor has been pretty good with the estimates that they have provided us. So hopefully are pretty confident with the numbers that we have there. But in the event that there would be an error, this would be able to capture that. Now with these two boxes, oh, okay. So a few different things here. Due to the continued decrease in EAV, the district has reached our maximum legal tax rates. And again, once you reach those, if we didn't have this component with transportation fund, we could not access any additional dollars. So you're virtually stopped at those tax rates and could not go beyond that. That's how the tax levy works. The transportation levy does not have a legal limit, so that is where the additional monies are being set. And then that will require us to make a transfer, which you will do by resolution, of transferring that money out of transportation to our other operating funds, Ed Fund or O&M fund, and that will happen later during the year. Then when you do the analysis, the top box is demonstrating that larger piece that we're asking for to safeguard ourselves. So the levy request is virtually for operating funds, the $47,707,920. Then you put the bond and interest, and the total request is $52,527,603. That is virtually $2.7 million over what we actually received last year. More than likely, that is not going to happen. What is most likely to happen is the second box. And that's based on the EAV that the assessor provided us. So you could see the request there is a little less than $1 million more than we received in the prior year. Now, how this compares to previous years and the times where we saw rising EAVs, our tax levy used to garner us $2 to $3 to $4 million more per year because of new construction and also because of increased EAVs. So when you take a look at this and see from year to year what we've been receiving, although I know it sounds like a lot of money, $1 million increase to a revenue budget of which we're, over $77 million budget is not a lot of additional revenue coming into us. So, but that's more of the reality of what will happen. The next page again demonstrates everything that I explained to you previously, but actually applying the more realistic approach of what the assessor provided us. Again, doesn't change any of the numbers with the exception of the full dollar amount that we would collect. And the overall tax rate for the operating funds would sit at $7 and 7.485, and for bonds would be 8.27058. So quite a different picture there. And then the next slide actually demonstrates just a little bit to you from a historical perspective where our EAV sat in 2002 to where it sits now. I will tell you, we're almost about, this current EAV is about what our EAV was 9 years ago. That's the type of loss in value that we are actually realizing now. And we'll share with you too what other school districts are feeling as well in our county. We're not the only ones. But I will tell you that, you know, it does end up making a difference at the end of the day as far as where our revenue comes in, where we end up landing. As you could see in the pie chart, the burden is placed on residential because that is the largest piece of the pie with a little over 59%, almost 60% of where our money comes from. And then our commercial industrial mineral is the wind turbines, and then our railroad and farm. Now, we do have intergovernmental agreement, a tax abatement agreement that hopefully incentivizes businesses to come to us, and it has worked thus far because we do abatements currently to a few businesses. That's what we want to grow. You want to grow those pieces of the pie, the green area, the purple and the blue, so the burden isn't weighted so heavily on the residential folks. So at the end of the day, we all know that that's eventually where we would like to be. Then when you look at TIFs, which we've talked about previously, we have a couple different visuals here that you can take a look at how we examine those. In 2013, the areas within that are all within the TIF, the largest area, of course, is the DeKalb Central Area TIF. Then TIF 2, and we have a TIF in Malta and we have a TIF in Portland as well. Now, what this means, this value, this $66 million of property value, we are not able to access when we do our levy. Because that is frozen under, when they tipped it, it was frozen at the value it came in at. So until these TIFs expire, then they come onto our property value. That actually then will end up lowering the tax rate because we'll have more value in our total EAV. We do, however, in these TIFs, do get a surplus because of another intergovernmental agreement that we currently enjoy with the city of DeKalb. Then when you take a look at the breakdown, I think this is the one thing that becomes somewhat concerning with all of us who started examining the TIFs. The largest portion of the TIF is residential. Typically, under the TIFs, we would like to see more commercial industrial, have that more heavily weighted, because when that comes off, actually that's what helps more. Residential, although we love any growth in EAV, kids come out of houses, which mean more money to spend to house the kids and all of that as well. So we have been working closely with the city to see how we can turn that around and see more commercial industrial growth happen and not continue to grow TIFs with residential properties. Then we have a visual here, which I hope kind of sums up what has been happening. The bars represent the property values, and as you see those bars on a downward trend, what you will notice is the other two lines above that are moving up, and those are our tax rates. So that's what happens overall, visually and pictorially, when people intuitively think the values are going down, my property tax bill should be going down. What ends up happening though, and this is in the formula that the state of Illinois built, not us, it drives the tax rate up. So it somewhat holds your tax bill steady. Maybe some people have seen a little decline, but people, I think, expect to see far more of a decline in their tax bill because they think, my God, we have, our homes are worth nothing now, but I haven't seen my tax bill move down substantially. This is why. This is what ends up happening. I think the interesting piece on this, because as I get the phone calls and everybody wants to blame our new high school and the new Cortland building and all of that, I will tell you at this point in time, that's not the main driver of the tax rate going up. If you look underneath the graph, we have broken down actually what the tax rate is, the limiting tax rate, and then you see the bond and interest rate separately. Our tax rate, the limiting tax rate in 2007 was $4.63, 64 if you round up. It is now $7.06. That's because of the decline in the EAV. That has nothing to do with the bonds. The second line is what the bonds are. So the bonds in 2007, pre-referendum, we had very little debt out there, 9 cents worth of debt we were paying on. Today is 75 cents. But over the past few years, that has only been on the uptick about 6 or 7 cents, where our operating rate has actually increased 70 cents and plus. So just as people to kind of keep the story straight right now, that tax rate is really being driven by the decline in EAV, not because of the debt out there. At this point in time, we'll have to with a later discussion. But then ending with this slide, again, just as a reminder, we did this in our budget presentation. When you look at the other school districts within our county, the value of the EAVs that they're realizing, same thing as well. We all enjoyed the younger years in 2008 and somewhat seen the decline in 2009, but really as you see those next 4 years are declining, and with this current estimate, it is at another decline of nearly 3.6% of EAV. So I think we had built in our forecast model, was it a 4% decline? So we're pretty darn close to what we had expected. We were hoping optimistically that we would have seen some better results, and hopefully on the horizon that will start to be on the uptick as these foreclosures and short sales come off the rolls, and we see somewhat of a rebound of what normalcy will be. But that is a completely new economic environment. What we saw in the past, is the days of the past in an economy we probably will not see again for a long, long time, if ever, and I can say 9 years. Okay. Simple enough.
She always ends with okay and a smile,
You want to borrow the mustache glasses?
Absolutely. Any questions?
Well, there's a lot, but I'll save mine for when we can sit down. Anyone?
I know it's a lot of information, a lot of math, a lot of detail, but hopefully it's the overall gist of what we're going through that you understand.
Well, clearly, I think one thing, and I think this slide basically shows it, this is not unique to us.
Not at
And in
all.
fact, we're a bit fortunate. There are some that have decreased in EAV significantly more than us on a percentage basis. And other than perhaps a Lake Forest, I would say, 98% of the communities are in this
Yes.
situation. So it's not unique to
No.
DeKalb.
And in fact, this, as it dovetails in when we were doing our budget presentation and And the trouble that we're seeing happening right now with the general state aid formula is a lot of that has to do with what you're seeing up here, is that everyone nearly in the state of Illinois is seeing their property values go down. And when that happens, the state is supposed to respond and give you what you no longer can get locally. And with everybody going down, or the majority of people going down, there is no longer enough money in that pot to fund the remainder and fill those areas again with the money in general state aid. So between the tax levy and prorations on general state aid for our district, we kind of get hit on both ends.
I did have one I forgot about. The transportation fund it's not a restricted fund because you're talking about moving funds out of that into the general fund. I'm assuming.
Right. So there was, good question, there was legislation passed quite a few years ago, and then it got extended to allow us to continue to use that fund to fill up, because they knew if they limited us, it becomes financially detrimental to a lot of districts. So they allow that to be somewhat uncapped, and then you can move that money to your other funds. That clause sunsets in 2016.
This seems contrary to, they put caps on all the other funds. But
Right.
leave this one out here that we can
Right.
play with the numbers and then funnel those funds to other general funds or
Yes.
life safety or whatever it is.
Right.
It just seems like not in the spirit of tax caps.
Right.
Because they left us an opening to take advantage of.
Well, it's really almost more of another unfunded mandate. They're telling you, you have to transport these kids regardless. So really all they've said is, we'll allow you to tax what you need to tax in order to transport these kids.
Yeah,
We're telling you we have.
Right, we're able to use it for whatever we want.
Right.
Right.
Which I just think is interesting considering.
Right.
Yeah,
You can
absolutely.
take excess money and move it to other funds.
Yeah.
And we don't know for how much longer, but right now it works in our favor.
Well, Andrew, since you went from one right into the other, I should have read this first. So sorry, it's been recommended that the Board of Education approve the proposed tax levy for the 2014 tax year for publication.
So,
Second.
Okay, so any other discussion before we, I'm sorry, I'm a little out of order on that, but, Vicky,
Mary Hess,
Yes.
Victoria Newport,
Yes.
Tracy Williams,
yes.
Colin Barnes,
yes.
Nina Fontana,
Yes.
Vicky Hernan Faber.
Yes.
All right, thanks, Andrew. I know that's
You're welcome.
not easy. All right, next, the enterprise zone update. This will be Paul Board and Gino, I'm sorry, last name.
Galuzzo.
Huh?
Galuzzo.
Galuzzo.
Hello, everyone. I'm with Sean Culbertson. Sorry, we met you all. You haven't met me before. I think usually Tony Ferrari comes here. So we wanted to give you an update as well before coming to the next few meetings. Just to give everybody a little bit of background information, and I hope this isn't too far back. As you remember, the city approached us a few months back and started negotiating with us on an extension on the abatement agreement, the intergovernmental agreement for taxes to try to lure logistics, industrial, knowledge-based companies to the area in order to increase the tax base. So during that process, that agreement was drafted initially back in 2010. There were some terms we wanted to negotiate on behalf of the school district to change in that agreement. As we started working through the process, it became apparent that they wanted to extend the current agreement immediately because we weren't reaching terms on all the terms. So I think the board already passed an extension to that existing agreement through the end of 2015. So what's happening also is the city and the county, along with several other municipalities, and Paul Bork are working to make application to the state for the enterprise zone. And that's going to be a competitive process. There's only a certain number of enterprise zone designations granted. As part of that, they feel it'd be important for them to move forward with their application, knowing that the school district is on board with granting them the authority to issue some abatements for those same types of businesses as they come into the area of the school district. they'll save industrial, knowledge-based logistics. In doing that, we've been working with them on finalizing an intergovernmental agreement that will be presented to the board, reviewed and voted on prior to the end of the year, so they can make their application. In going back and forth in recent weeks, or actually recent months, the last version we sent them was middle last week or beginning of last week. They came back with a resolution form as opposed to an intergovernmental form. An intergovernmental agreement, like you've had, is a bilateral agreement between parties where you agree to certain terms. A resolution is kind of unilateral on behalf of the school board saying, we'll agree to these following abatements for these following businesses. And many of those same terms are in there, but there's not really any commitment from any other side agreeing to what we'd like to see that's in the intergovernmental agreement. So what we have to do in the next week or week and a half is figure out exactly what are those terms that are devoid in the resolution, how do we want to address those if we can, and ultimately view the presentation that the Economic Development Council is going to be presenting on behalf of the joint municipalities in order to acquire approval from the school board. Talking about timing, we have 2 meetings left other than today, December 2nd and December 16th. So in discussing this with Paul and their consultant, their enterprise consultant, last week, Andrew and Cindy and I recommended that they have a package prepared as to what their ask is, what their exact ask is, and the impacts of that for the school district for this Friday. The reason I want it this Friday is next week we only have 2 days. We have Monday and Tuesday, then we have the holiday week, and then we're running into the board meeting quickly thereafter, Tuesday thereafter again on the 2nd. So ideally, we'd be able to get a presentation prepared by Friday, or I should say the EDC prepares that, presents that to us, we could share it with all you folks. We can assemble questions that you might have Monday and Tuesday and relay those back to them so that they can come fully prepared to present and answer any questions that may have popped up through our review of that initial draft of that agreement. That's kind of the plan we've discussed and laid out. So with that, I'd like to open the floor up if you have any questions or to have Paul kind of give some information or update as to where you guys are at, which taxing districts you're working with on this.
Are there any questions before I start? Oh. Well, first of all, I want to express appreciation to the school district on behalf of DCEC and the county and all of the taxing bodies. The draft intergovernmental agreement that you've prepared and is also based on considerable amount of experience over the years with the cooperative intergovernmental agreement with the city of DeKalb and the other taxing bodies, was used as a model to prepare the required enterprise zone documents that include designating ordinances among the designating units defined by the Act as the counties and municipalities, intergovernmental agreements among those designating units as required by the Act, and then participating resolutions on behalf of the taxing bodies. Most, if not all of, nearly all of the provisions identified in the IGA are included in these documents. Also, the designating units in the county adopted the 10-year program for interstate competition, for an interstate competition market within 3.5 miles of I-88 to compete aggressively for investment, jobs, and tax base. This program was recommended by the School City Task Force earlier in the year. The 10-year program differentiates between knowledge-based and like R&D and engineering businesses, manufacturing and logistics, to recognize the higher wages and economic impact associated with knowledge-based and manufacturing industries while supporting the revenue-generating capacities of the logistics industry. All of the taxing bodies that have been party to the intergovernmental agreement are in the process of considering or approving the participating resolutions. They include the DeKalb Public Library District, which approved it last week. The Sanitary District will be considering it for approval tomorrow. DeKalb County tomorrow night. Their first reading is the 24th, and the second reading and approval is scheduled for December 8th. Kishwaukee College was very supportive, and they'll be looking to approve at their next meeting on December 9th. DeKalb Township, December 10th, and DeKalb Park District, December 11th. Countywide, the city of Sycamore and their taxing bodies are considering it and requesting resolutions, as well as Genoa, Cortland, Waterman, and Sandwich. The requirements include the designation of a zone administrator. I think we talked about this in our previous presentations. The executive director of DeKalb County Economic Development Corporation would be the zone administrator and would be responsible for administering and enforcing the ordinance, operating and managing the zone. Any appeals or decisions or determinations made by the zone administrator shall be taken to a enterprise zone advisory board for final consideration and resolution. And I'll talk about that advisory board in a moment. The administrator shall maintain records associated with activities and prepare and distribute reports, including data required by the state of Illinois and their Department of Revenue.
If I can interrupt just a minute, I think a lot of this will get into the presentation next meeting. I don't know if we need to get into all this detail unless you guys have questions. I just wanted to kind of report big picture. I'm just afraid without having it up on a PowerPoint and having handouts, it's a lot of information to digest. And I'd like to be able to get that in a PowerPoint for them, so that it can be clear along with terms, unless you want to keep hearing some other stuff.
But since you brought it up, I do have one quick question. Is there a fee assessed to the taxing bodies to administer the enterprise zone?
No, the Enterprise Zone Act enables the enterprise zone body and the enterprise zone administrator to assess a fee, a limited fee, prescribed on the companies that would receive benefits from the enterprise zone program, be it the tax abatement program with the taxing bodies, or be it the state incentives provided to manufacturers for purchasing additional equipment. So there would be no fee as to the taxing bodies nor the designating municipalities.
Just out of curiosity, can you define limited?
It's limited by a percentage of the amount of the construction project or expansion, or a maximum of $50,000 for a really large project.
I believe, I do this from memory, but it'll be in the packet. You make sure it's in the packet that you give. I think it's 0.5% of construction materials,
gross
going in there, gross, and it's up to $50,000 a year.
Up to $50,000 per project.
That's the
It's
dollar.
not. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's not annual. It's at the time of investment, construction, and new valuation. I'll just touch on one thing too that I think is important just to set the stage. The program calls, our program, the DeKalb County Enterprise Zone Program, calls for the creation of an Enterprise Zone Advisory Board. It's not required by the Act, but it's being created to be transparent, to facilitate communications and regular reporting and interaction. The Enterprise Zone Advisory Board would consist of the executive committee of the DeKalb County Economic Development Corporations, together with representation from each of the participating taxing bodies. And the Enterprise Zone Administrator would serve as staff to the Enterprise Zone Advisory Board. The Advisory Board would meet regularly to consider policy, projects, administration, and regularly communicate with representatives of all the taxing bodies on projects, activity, volume, dollar amount, and hear appeals and concerns and changes to the act. So I just wanted to share that. Because I know that would, we feel that would increase transparency and facilitate understanding communications on an ongoing, regular basis that may have been lacking in the past.
Any questions?
There's something that's not clear to me, and maybe you can help me from FFAC about what Kathy Watkins' confusion was.
The hold harmless agreement. That the schools were held harmless somehow in this process. Andrea, is that right?
Yep, she asked about that and a unified abatement agreement. She thought that we all had to have one agreement from all the taxing bodies. And we can have our own.
Technically, you can have our own. We feel it makes we're advised that it makes the application more competitive to have a unified program and recognizing the desires and needs of the individual taxing bodies and school districts and communities to be competitive. Our unified program consists of a 5-year program throughout the county with a 5-year bonus or a 10-year program within 3.5 miles of the interstate to facilitate. Because in fact, from a market standpoint, we compete for different projects along 88 than you would in other locations throughout the county. And in that competition, we face other enterprise zones in Illinois and other states with 10-year agreements plus.
So just to clarify, I think in the meeting coming up in the packet, I think we should identify what the ask is. And then we should present, your council should present to you what we think, the differences between if we go the route being requested versus the intergovernmental agreement, what terms are in there that aren't going to be in a unilateral resolution, so you can make an informed decision on that. Some of the terms in the resolution, just to be clear, as presented to us late Thursday, was it's basically a 15-year period that you're looking at for kind of an abatement agreement period of 15 years. But it's the abatement that you'd be giving any particular business would vary between 5 years and 10 years, depending on where they're located. 10 years for those within 3.5 miles of the interstate, and 5 years for those that are not within that distance. The prior IGA was just a 5-year abatement period, so just want to make sure everybody understands that, and we'll show the different schedules. Paul's actually provided those on a spreadsheet, which works pretty nicely. We can refine a little bit for that presentation.
Additionally, how that works through the general state aid formula will need to be demonstrated.
Yes. We'll present that as well.
Paul's got a consultant who won't be available at the next meeting. He's going to try to get a presentation prepared by him that he can present to the board with the idea.
Anyone else? Well, I think the issue here, Paul, is really about, we're pretty close to an IGA. And then now we see a proposed resolution, and really we're approaching the 11th hour here. And you can understand our concern because earlier we talked about sequestration. We all the time hear school districts complain about the state not fully funding their obligations. And now we have local governments coming to us and governing bodies and coming to us and asking us to potentially forego some things and trust us it'll all be okay. And so far, not much has really turned out okay. And all of us take financial health of the school district very seriously. I mean, obviously. And if we're skeptical, I hope you can understand why. We see changes now with the proposed resolution as opposed to the intergovernmental. We're the ones that did the work on what these abatements should look like when others hadn't. And that's concerning. So please do get Mr. Coyle and others engaged to get this stuff addressed so that we can fully understand what the ramifications are to the district and how we can be comfortable that is in fact the numbers that will bear themselves out and not some change midstream like Build America bonds that we find out 4 years later really weren't as advertised, because we can't put the district in this position. We just can't. So tonight, we have to ask local taxpayers to pay an additional $48,000 because some program didn't work as advertised, or somebody decided they just couldn't do it, so it's up to the local folks. And we have to make sure that your enterprise zone doesn't affect us in that way. So I hope you can appreciate that.
I do understand.
And we look forward to the responses because we have no intention of standing in the way of any progress here economically in this region. We would love to be part of it. But we do have to clearly understand what the ramifications could be and will be, or else we're setting ourselves up for more issues like tonight, just a few years downstream. And the next group, many of us won't be here in a few years. The next group will have to deal with that issue like we're dealing with some that other groups before us have engaged. So it's not easy.
I understand, appreciate it.
All right, anyone else? All right, thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
Gino, thanks for staying around. Okay, this one's a little lighter. New business, be the approval of the 2015-16 school calendar. This is an action item. It's been recommended that the Board of Education approve the attached calendar for the 2015-16 school year. Do I have a motion? Second?
Second.
Vicki? Or any discussion first? Anybody calendar issues? Okay, Vicki?
Victoria Newport.
Yes.
Tracy Williams.
Yes.
Colin Barnes.
Yes.
Dean Fontana.
Yes.
Vicky Hernan Favor. Mary Hess.
Yes.
All right, I think that's it. Do we have a motion to adjourn? All in favor, say aye. Have a nice Thanksgiving, everyone. We'll see you.